Hello and welcome to another episode of Fighting Mr. Height, the podcast. I'm your host, Allie Jackson, and I am bringing you my positive and practical approach to dating, relationships, and a whole lot else about life from my lived experience. Hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. I am pumped about this week's episode. It is one that I recorded in person, and I love when I get to record with guests in person. This guest has been on the pod before, a long time ago, though. It is Amy Chan. She was on the pod back in the work days, back when we did like a breakup series. She was on the pod talking about her breakup boot camp work. That was the title of her first book. And she runs breakup boot camps for women. And it was an incredible episode. And she has a new book coming out. Her new book is called Unsingle. And she was in New York, kind of like doing a press tour, going to different podcasts and things like that. And so we got to meet in person and we recorded in a studio, actually, which was super fun. I'm just pumped for you to hear this episode. I know I've used the word pumped already. Amy has been in the dating and relationship space for years. And one of the things that I love about her work is how much she brings her own personal story into it. She does that in this book, and we talk about it in this interview. It's just so relatable. And it's coming from a place of like, I worked on this shit, and here's how it worked for me. And as you know, I love that approach. We get into attachment styles, love addiction, why you keep choosing the same person in a different body, and how to actually go about changing that. The mechanics of dating from like first swipe to long-term relationship. I love her really mechanical approach to it. It just feels very easy to break down. I love how her brain works. I love how she analyzes the different parts of dating. And we also get into what healthy interdependence looks like versus, codependence or hyper independence that a lot of us default to. It's a really good conversation. So excited for you to hear it. Before that, though, some updates on my end. It has been a very busy couple of weeks. Actually, last week, I was not home for one weeknight of the entire week, which I need to not do. I need to remember that I don't like that. And I like having a little bit more routine and being home a little bit more, and I need to do that. However, one of those outings was a musical with my bestie, with Cindy. We went to see Beaches, which was a book and a movie. I've read the book. I haven't seen the movie, but it's Bette Midler is in the movie. And oh my goodness, I highly recommend this show. I don't go to many Broadway shows, and every single time I go, I think I need to go to more Broadway shows. It's so good. It's in previews right now, and the tickets are not that expensive. Obsessed. So good. Laughed out loud, sobbed. I won't, no spoilers at all, but like, it was such a special one to go to with my best friend because it is all about best friends. It's literally follows two best friends. And just the female friendship themes, and female friendship is something that's been coming up in my mind a lot. I talked at length on the Patreon this past week about the female friendship in my life through volleyball and just kind of how much that's meant to me and how important that is in my life. And this show just really exemplified that. And like I said, I live in New York and I don't go to Broadway nearly enough. I need to go more. I think the last one I went to was with Skyline when we did Book of Mormon for our surprise date, which was last summer. So I need to get on that. I need to go to more. They're so fun. Also, like, I have the time to go to the like TKTS or whatever during the day. Like, I could do that. And I just don't. I just forget about it. I think that often happens with things that are just so accessible that we forget that they're things that we want to be doing. So I need to not do that with Broadway because Beaches was just amazing. Super, super recommend. But yeah, last week was just crazy busy. Very fun, lots of volleyball, the show, everything. But because of that, this past weekend, Skyline and I made a decision that we were not going to make any plans in advance. We've been overprogrammed, both independently and jointly, for several weeks now. And so we decided for this past weekend that we could obviously do things, but we weren't going to make any plans until day of. And it turned into the most fantastic weekend. We got a lot of sleep. We also saw some friends. We did a little brewery hop around Long Island City. I played volleyball on the water in Long Island City. Like, just a really lovely weekend that still felt very casual, and where we had 90 plus recovery scores on our whoops every day, which for the past several weekends we have not. I believe Skyline was at 18 last Sunday. Not ideal. Or maybe I was. I don't remember. But it was just a really relaxing weekend. It was a really good kind of exhale moment. This weekend, he's actually out of town. He's in Florida for a friend's birthday. So I have the apartment to myself. By the time you heard this, maybe I'll have, burned the place down with a party. I don't think so. I have a volleyball tournament on Saturday, so I do not plan on doing very much. So he left today. I dropped him off at the airport. LaGuardia Airport Terminal A. Are you okay? Are you a regional airport in the middle of nowhere? I had never been to LaGuardia Terminal A. Spirit flies out of there. I don't know if anybody else does. It literally, first of all, you're driving through a neighborhood to get there. The other terminals of LaGuardia are off the highway, like a normal airport, particularly one that's in New York City. Terminal A, you get off the highway and then you wind through like a very residential area with just signs everywhere that say Terminal A, turn right, Terminal A, turn left, Terminal A, go straight. And I'm like, are we getting punked by this map? And then we pull up and literally it looks like the smallest, most like rinky-dink little regional airport you've ever seen. Skyline sent me a video from inside. It looked like he was in the 1970s. I don't know if they're planning on remodeling Terminal A, but it doesn't deserve to be called LaGuardia Airport, frankly. LaGuardia is now a very, very nice airport. It used to be a piece of shit. Like, I remember I flew out of LaGuardia on JetBlue years and years and years ago, and I was flying direct to San Diego. JetBlue used to have a flight out of LaGuardia. Now it's only out of JFK. And so this flight was like really expensive. I think I was flying home for Christmas. It was a crazy expensive flight. And I'm sitting there waiting for my crazy expensive flight in a terminal where there's literally water dripping from the ceiling into buckets. There were 3 to 4 buckets surrounding me in just my boarding area where there was water dripping from the ceiling because it was raining. That is what LaGuardia Airport used to be. And I thought we had reached a higher level in our New York City airports now, but apparently Terminal A just got like fully left in the dust. So that was quite the awakening experience driving into that. The other thing that I've been doing in the last week or two is my curly hair journey. Thank you for those of you who followed along, wished me luck, sent me words of encouragement, words of affirmation on Instagram or TikTok or wherever. I'm really enjoying this. So you probably know, I think I've talked about this before. I got a curly cut for the first time on my birthday or the day of my birthday party. And it was a dry curly cut. And then she styled it, obviously, like a hairstylist does. And that was, by the way, the first time that a hairstylist has ever styled my hair curly. I had only ever gotten my hair blown out after a haircut, even at places that like specialize in curly hair, which when I say that out loud, that does sound like a red flag. You're right. Never occurred to me. So I get this dry curly cut. She styles my hair. It lasted all week. And I played volleyball 3 times last week and it lasted all week. She used a shit ton of gel in it to the point where on the day of, I didn't love how crunchy it looked and felt, but that shit lasted. So she was onto something. And she told me that. She was like, I probably would use less gel next time, but this is going to last you. And it did. It looked great on day like 4 and 5. And I was, like I said, playing volleyball. So this week was the first week that I was doing it myself. And for those of you who have curly hair and who remember your curly hair journey, I've had mini curly hair journeys in the past, but I didn't really realize how I actually hadn't until now, because this is the first time that I actually feel like I have a cut that's made for my hair. So I did it for the first time this week, and I did it with the products that she used. So I used like a little bit of leave-in conditioner that I already had, not her, the exact one she used. And then I used the gel that she got me, or she used on me, which is Uncle Funky's daughter, Curl Magic. And it's like a curl stimulating gel, firm hold gel. And I used that on sections. And the difference that from my previous curly routines is that she taught me that the curl pattern on my hair on the bottom of my head is much tighter than the curl pattern that comes from the top of my head. So on the bottom, I have to pull down and stretch out those curls. Whereas on the top, I should use my bounce curl brush, which I used to use all over my head. So no wonder the back of my head and the bottom of my head specifically was like coiling up and looking so short. I do also have some breakage, but the main reason was the curl pattern. So she taught me that. And so I did that for the first time this week, and it turned out so good. I didn't diffuse it like she did, so it didn't have quite as much definition or volume. I might try that next time, but honestly, I loved it air dried and obviously takes way less time. So I don't know if I'm going to bite the bullet on the diffuser. I own one, but like, I don't know when I will try diffusing it. I don't know when it will matter that much to me to spend that much time on my hair, because air drying looked great. The only difference that I noticed was that I didn't use enough gel on the back. Somebody in the comments mentioned that the back of my head also might be more porous in addition to having a different curl pattern. So it might need more product. So I'm going to try that next time. And then also, because I didn't use as much gel overall and didn't diffuse, it hasn't lasted as long. So I did it on Monday. If you're watching the video, you can see what it looks like. It is currently Thursday. So it's day 4. And it's still curly. Like, it doesn't look bad, but I've pulled it back into like a half up situation because the top has gotten a little bit all over the place, even with curl refresher, which is fine. Day 4 for me to still be able to wear it mostly down. Totally fine. I just have like a little like claw clippy. You can't see it. A claw clippy in it. Because I'm trying to help with the breakage in not putting it up on top of my head as much. She said, though, based on exactly where the breakage was, she's pretty sure that it's happening while I'm sleeping and not actually from just doing it during the day, because the breakage is not where she found the breakage is not where my scrunchie would hold it on my head, but rather where my head would hit the pillow. Like, it's much lower down than where my scrunchie is. And that would be from not wearing my bonnet, putting it on top of my head, and then not wearing my bonnet, because I previously really thought about my bonnet as something I wear to keep my curl pattern, but I had not thought about it as something I wear to protect my hair from breaking. Again, something that seems obvious, but I didn't know. So now I know, and now I'm wearing my bonnet every single night, regardless of what my hair looks like, even if it's already quote unquote ruined and I'm wearing it up. I'm still wearing my bonnet to protect my hair. I think I'm going to get a new bonnet. I've heard good things about the Blissy ones. If anybody has any recommendations, I'm all ears. The company that my current bonnet is from, unfortunately, went out of business, and I really love it, but it is starting to get a little older and like stretch out a little bit. So I think it's time for a new one, because it's starting to fall off my head at night a little bit more than it used to. I do have a big head, though. So if you're going to give me bonnet recommendations, please be a big head lady, because I've had bonnets before that people recommended that were like so tight on my head because they have average size heads, and mine's big. So that's where I'm at with my curly journey. And it's been just so fun to feel so much more confident in my hair and to not feel like frizz is the enemy. Somehow with this cut, I like the volume. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you grew up in the early 2000s as a girl, as a teenager in the early 2000s, you were taught that volume and frizz are the enemy. You were taught to flat iron the shit out of your hair. Flat iron it into submission until it is pasted to your head. And that is what all the girls in my 7th and 8th grade classes looked like all the way through high school, frankly. I can't think of anyone who had curly hair in my school. And my school was mostly white. But even like all of us, like girls of color, we were straightening our hair because that's what we thought we had to do. Not a great time to be a teenage girl. It really never is. But that was a bad time for a myriad of reasons. Also, the like 90s thin model thing, which unfortunately seems to be swinging back. Anywho, frizz being the enemy has been so deeply ingrained in me. And obviously there's like a racial identity component of that too. And I'm feeling myself healing in real time with this haircut and with doing my hair this way. And it's just been really fun. It's been really fun. I'm excited to try different types of products. I want to try, like, I have so many different hair products. So I want to try my different curl creams and things to see what they look like versus the gel, or maybe a combo platter. We'll see. And I'm going to go back every 3 months and continue to get it cut so that it stays healthy. I like the length, but I would be curious if what my hair would look like curly and longer. I'm curious what that might be. So we shall see. And that's what's going on with me. The last thing that we need to do before we get to Miss Amy Chan and our amazing interview is talk about this week's media mention. So I'm sharing something that I came across literally today. I had a different thing planned, and then I came across this actually today, and it stopped me mid-scroll. Miriam Tinney has been a guest on this podcast. I love her. She is such an amazing follow. I will throw her handle in the show notes. She shared an article on Instagram that was inspired by a Substack article that she read. And the Substack is called On Work. It's by Shana Anderson. And this particular piece is called Portfolio Careers Are Meant for Generalists. It's free. You can subscribe to her Substack. Doesn't cost anything. I felt like I was reading a description of my own life, and Miriam felt the same way and talked about it. So first, let me explain what a portfolio career is, because it sounds like a finance term, and it very much isn't, but I had never heard this term before. A portfolio career is where instead of having like one job or one income stream, like, your typical corporate 9 to 5, for example, you build a career out of multiple income streams that together reflect sort of your full range of skills and interests. And the key word there is together, because the version that she talks about really working is not really cobbling together a bunch of random gigs to pay rent, but rather building something where each piece feeds the others, or perhaps feeds a part of yourself and feels cohesive, at least to you. And the article lays out a spectrum. And on one end, she has what you call a laser career, which is, again, what I said, like a, typical corporate 9 to 5, deep focus. In the middle, you have what I had been doing for several years, which is a main thing and a side gig, a side hustle. So when I had my corporate career and then I was doing Finding Mr. Height stuff on the side, that would be kind of in that middle of the spectrum. And then on the far end, you have a true portfolio career, and where no single thing is the center, it's all kind of working in combination. And the percentages might fluctuate. Like maybe one thing is the majority of your income, but it's not necessarily the center of your focus. Doesn't need to be the way that it does when you have a laser career or like one main thing. And when I read that, I thought, well, that's what I have built. Originally, sort of accidentally, like the main thing, side hustle thing, I didn't see that coming. But the portfolio career piece, I have very much intentionally built that as something that really feeds the way that I like to work. And it just really spoke to me. And I think it is something that is becoming more and more common and more achievable. This sort of career was not something I probably could have done even 10 years ago, maybe a little longer ago than that. And I really, really like the verbiage of it, because it gave a word to something that I've had a hard time describing. And something that Miriam said that came up for me when I was listening and reading, and something that I struggle with, is when somebody says, well, what do you do? People ask you all the time, what do you do for work? And I often struggle to answer that question, because I do a lot of different things, and externally they can seem kind of random. Like, oh, I'm a corporate consultant. I consult for corporate retailers in finance and planning and production and such. Also I have a podcast, and I give dating and relationship advice. And also I lead group trips for women. And I also help people do that now. Help other people, like lean into travel as a business for themselves. It's like all of these different things that to me feel really cohesive, because there's so many things that I'm interested in. And they, in some ways, some of them feed each other, but they do seem kind of random. And there isn't like one word to describe what I do, because even if I were going to say, oh, I'm an influencer, that's not even fully true. Because first of all, the majority of my income doesn't come from that. And second of all, it's not even all inclusive. So it's a little bit, it just really helped me to read this and to have words to describe the thing that I do. But also, I think it would have really helped me to read something like this before I was doing what I'm doing now. And I think for a lot of people, and especially women, it can be a really fulfilling thing. But I think there's this pressure to have a very clean answer to, so what do you do? And the slash person, if you will, and by that I mean like a person who has a bunch of slashes in their job title, they reject that. And the portfolio career rejects that. And the answer is, I do a few things and they kind of all connect. And I don't know, it just felt very validating to read, because building this career of mine has not felt tidy in the same way that building my career up through 2021, let's say, felt very tidy. maybe 2020, because like 2020 was when I really took a step back and decided like, what do I want to do with my life? Though I did decide I wanted to continue on in retail at that time. So it just really felt validating to me. And the way that I have really enjoyed living my life, this framing that this idea that variety is not a flaw in the plan, it actually like is the whole plan, that really landed for me. So if you've been building something or wanting to build something that doesn't have a clean one line answer, it's not linear, it's not super focused in, if you've been feeling weird about that, or if you're just curious, go read this piece. I'll link it in the show notes. Like I said, it's from Shana Anderson's Substack, which is called On Work, that I've now subscribed to because I really want to get more in depth about my approach to work. Like I want to be more purposeful about my approach to my work philosophy, I think is what I mean to say. So also thank you to Miriam because I found it through her. And that is this week's media mention. And now let's get to Miss Amy Chan.
And we are back with Amy in person.
Yes!
Hello. Welcome back to Fighting Mr. Hyde, the podcast.
Thank you.
It's so amazing to have you back and to meet you in person.
I know. I feel like I know you like already.
Yeah.
But
Literally you came down the stairs. I was like, good to see you. And then I'm like, wait, this is the first time I'm seeing you actually.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited to be here with you. Congratulations on your upcoming second book.
Thank you.
Even one book is a crazy feat.
Yeah.
And for you to have your second one coming out, I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
It's amazing. It's called Unsingle. Mm-hmm. And I devoured it.
Did you really?
I devoured it. And that's like really saying something because I also had like the manuscript version. So I'm like, it's not even a book. I'm like clicking through and just, I loved it.
Thank you.
I loved it
so much.
So we must dive in.
Okay.
One of the things that I love so much about your writing, and I loved this too about Breakup Bootcamp, was like the way that you infuse your own story and you're so vulnerable about the things in your life that led you to do the work that you do.
Yeah.
And you kind of open the book with a story of like living with somebody at the time and discovering he was cheating on you through a psychic.
Yes.
Tough.
Yeah.
So talk about from there, like starting there, I feel like it seems like that kind of launched the Amy that we know today.
Yeah, because I think like the Amy 1.0 version,
Yeah.
My idea of living the dream was like date someone who, made more money than me, get married, and like be a really good wife and like have whatever job I had as like a side thing. And I was on track on getting that dream, and it all blew up after the infidelity and finding it out in the most obscure way possible, like going into this closet-like thing where there's a psychic. It was just crazy. You have to figure it out in the book.
Yeah, you're going to need to read the book to get the full effect.
Yeah, and I broke into a million pieces, and I pieced myself back together, which took me a very long time. But that kind of started my whole journey of like running breakup boot camps and then helping all these people who were heartbroken, who would come to me after and be like, okay, Amy, I'm over my ex. Like, how do I date? Then helping them with dating and seeing people who had never been in a relationship or single for 10 years or 75 years old and thinking that they would never have a chance at love, and working with them and seeing the results of getting into healthy relationships. I'm like, okay, so I have another thing here and I have a framework, and you can actually break it down and change your results in dating.
I love it. And going back to kind of your journey, you used this term earned secure, which really resonated with me because I come from an anxious attachment background.
Hello, me too.
Yes, hello. I tend anxious, and I think that's probably not surprising from somebody who ended up with a dating podcast that I'm like, oh, I'm very anxious about this. We need to go find out everything we can learn about this. But through therapy and work and all of this stuff, I feel like I have a secure attachment now, but I love earned secure.
Yeah.
Because it is something that I feel like I need to earn continuously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So if earned secure means like you weren't born with a secure attachment style,
right,
like some of us.
So lucky, the lucky ones.
And so, yeah, like, I mean, I similarly, like I was very codependent. I had high anxiety. I had love addiction. I was just a mess. And like you started a dating podcast. I became a dating columnist. therapist. I've been doing it for 20 years. And for me, I was like, okay, if I could figure out the science, the psychology, then I won't be heartbroken all the time. And I really dove into this work because it was the one area I just kept failing at.
And that in the book is what you call the foundation work, right? Like we need to lay the right foundation in order to be able to move forward.
Yeah.
What did that first step even look like for you? And like, what do you advise? How do you advise people to kind of think about that?
Yeah, so I think there's different modalities. So people will be like, it's therapy, it's parts work, whatever it is. But I think the very first step before you even figure out the modality is to actually look at what is the reoccurring pattern. Because if you have no awareness of that, what happens is we tend to double down on work harder using the wrong system. And then we keep getting the same results that are disappointing. And eventually we can create stories about, I'm never going to find love. There's something wrong with me. It's my age. It's my city. Or then you start blaming externally, like there's no good guys out there. They're all just pigs. They're all just ghosting.
And then they will be.
Yeah.
Like I feel like when you start to see that, then you start gravitating towards that even more.
Yeah.
Like to your point about doubling down on things that aren't working.
Yeah, exactly. And so like an exercise I have both in the book and at my retreats is like, I have people write down an inventory of who were the last 3 romantic relationships. And we have to list all the data, like who initiated, what were your main feelings, how did they look like, what were their values? And then I have my clients go circle anything that's in common. And what people usually find surprising is they'll say, I don't have a type. And then they'll notice like, oh, I do have a type. It's an emotional experience that keeps repeating.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of what one such emotional experience might be?
Anxiety is one of them. And I would say when I did this exercise myself, I mean, I came up with it because I did it on myself. And I found like all the ones where I was the one initiating and chasing down, I felt high anxiety. And all the ones that I didn't, I felt boredom. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? And why is anxiety the emotional experience that keeps repeating? And then I was able to draw a parallel, like, oh, like that's kind of the experience I had with my father. And that felt very familiar and at home to me. So I think understanding that was an unlock, because then I was like, okay, I'll try these different modalities, but then I can recognize that when it's happening in real time.
How do you go from, I think the hardest part for me is to go from recognizing to actually changing. You use an analogy in your book about going from like loud heavy metal music to classical music.
Yeah.
And that seems like a huge shift. Like if I'm somebody who's obsessed with heavy metal and I want to become somebody who loves classical music, okay, sure, I know that now. And I can hear myself listening to heavy metal.
Yeah.
But like, how do I get myself to like classical?
Exposure therapy. So like human beings, we can't go from 0 to 100. You can't go like from I hate myself to like I love myself by just repeating affirmations in the mirror. It really doesn't work.
Forcing yourself into it. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't go from like dating people who were very unhealthy or weren't available to suddenly like, I'm going to change my mind and suddenly I'm only going to be drawn to available people. Human beings are drawn to what is familiar. So if familiarity was anxiety or chaos or unavailability, that's what you're going to be drawn to. So to change that, you need to actually have exposure therapy to what you actually want. So if it's classical music, AKA a stable person, then you have to expose yourself to more people like that. And it might not be just in dating. It might be, okay, my friends of the opposite sex. I'm going to start making friends who I feel calm and I can trust. And that's your 0 to 5 degrees versus 0 to 100 degrees.
It sounds similar to me of when I was trying to get better at approaching people in the wild, which still terrifies me.
Okay.
I started by practicing on people that I wasn't actually interested in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the stakes felt lower.
Right.
And it seems like a similar exposure therapy kind of approach.
Yeah.
And you've seen that work, like with people kind of making that leap from people they surround themselves with unromantically to translating into their romantic connections?
So yeah, I actually give the advice that being in the friend zone, like do the friend zone thing, is actually not a bad thing. So if you ever have had no success in your romantic relationships, and I work with a lot of men who are afraid of being in the friend zone. I'm like, your next step is not to just go and try and find a girlfriend. It's not working for you. So your next step is become friends with women, understand how they talk, how they think, how they feel, understand how to be present with them. And it's a very low stakes environment. And then once you've built that and you've developed some emotional skill, then we can talk about dating. The same thing if you've been cheated on and you're like, I can't trust men, they're all going to cheat on me. Your next step isn't to just go find a boyfriend. Go meet guys that treat you well, who want to be your friend and like are generous and loving, so that you can shift that belief.
I love that.
Yeah.
And like doing it genuinely too, right? Because I could imagine that there might be some people who, when they try to do that, end up like, oh, I'm going to go try to make friends, but okay, now I want to date those people. You're
Right.
like, well, that wasn't the point of the exercise.
Yeah. And like, maybe eventually like you do fall for someone that you wouldn't normally give a chance to. And there's nothing wrong with that as well, right? Like there's something called the mere exposure effect, which is a psychological phenomenon where the more you have repeated interactions with someone, it amplifies the base feeling.
Yeah.
So maybe you've had in your past just very hot relationships and starts that end very abruptly. And another direction for you is to meet someone, feel safe around them, let your guard down, and eventually like a connection grows and it's more slow. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah. And I think especially if you are in that pattern of anxious attachment and wanting to feel those butterflies, slow feels wrong.
Yeah, for sure. It feels boring.
Yeah, it feels like, oh no, I don't actually like this person.
Yeah.
And they don't actually like me.
Yeah.
Because you're used to that like chaos.
Yeah.
Another aspect of that, you have a whole chapter called the breadcrumb diet, which first of all, I just chuckled when I read that. Tell me how that, like what that kind of how that factors into this whole story, because I think so many of us can relate to feeling like we're only getting breadcrumbs from someone, but then somehow finding it again and again and again and again.
I think people need to understand why we get so hooked on people who just give us crumbs. And a lot of the times we think it must be because that person is so special, or we have this soulmate connection. When really, when you break it down, there's actually something happening in your brain. And can I explain the rat experiment?
Please.
Okay, so some people might know this, but there's this famous rat experiment where they put rats in a cage and there's a lever, and every time the rat presses the lever, there's a pellet of food that comes out. So if the rat's pressing the lever, it gets its food, the rat is living a happy life. That's continuous reinforcement.
Yep.
You do an action, you know what you're going to get. Then the researchers are like, okay, let's remove the food altogether. So the rats press the lever, nothing comes out. They keep doing it, doesn't come out. And then they realize nothing's going to come out, whatever, I'm going to go.
Eventually, they get bored and move on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then the researchers are like, okay, let's play a trick. How about when the rat presses a lever, sometimes food comes out, sometimes it doesn't. It's completely at random. And you know what happens to the rats. But for those listening, what happens is those rats just keep pressing the lever, maniacally obsessed. They stop grooming, they stop drinking water, and they die. They die. And like that same thing is happening to us as human beings when we are just like checking our Instagram stories and seeing if they watched your story, or they've disappeared and then they reappear on a Friday night saying, hey, what's up? That is causing us to feel hooked on that person. And then when we obsess and we try to be detectives to figure out, oh, why are they doing that? Let's screenshot the text message, put it in the group chat. We're getting little dopamine hits. And we think about them so much that it makes us think, oh, it must be because I like them so much, or we have this special connection, when it's not.
And you're like riding that dopamine hit, and then you need the next one.
Because you're in withdrawal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I learned about that study in college because I was a consumer psych minor. So like very different application. It was about like retail and shopping. But I remember reading it and being like horrified.
Yeah.
Horrified.
Yeah.
And it makes total sense though, of like you become, like you said, maniacally obsessed without those little kernels of attention, particularly because you don't know when they're going to come.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe this will be the time.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe he'll watch my Instagram story and text me this time.
Ugh. Yeah. I know.
I
I've
shudder.
been there. We've both been there.
I shudder because I know this experience so well.
Yeah. And like I talk about in the book, like I was in that for like 3 years with a guy, and I just thought we had this cosmic connection and we were meant to be, and like he wasn't ready for a relationship. But to me, I'm like, oh, right now. And if I just prove myself to be perfect and pretty and available, then eventually he's going to change his mind, right? Well, he didn't.
They don't.
They don't.
And like if they do, is that the connection you want?
Yeah.
Because when it's still potentially that intermittent, attention, right? Like that could go away.
Yeah.
Like maybe they change their mind for now.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like something that you want to pin your hopes and dreams on.
Yeah, exactly.
And be secure in.
I know.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay. So we then move on to kind of like these 5 stages.
Mm-hmm.
And something, though, when I sort of was like reading through them, something that I found really heartening was when you talked about the prospecting stage and applying almost like a mathematical precision to figuring out what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I loved it because one of the things that infuriates me so much is complacency in dating. And not because people can decide they don't want to date, right?
Yeah.
Like they absolutely. But I think there are people who are like, well, if I just take the hands off the wheel and don't pay attention to it, I will get results because I'm not paying attention to it. And I don't find that that's what happens.
Right. Like the idea that fate is going to strike.
Right.
And like your perfect partner is going to just run into you at Whole Foods. Like,
yeah. And even like I met my partner in the wild in a very random meeting.
Yeah.
But it happened because I decided that I wanted to go to more in-person things to meet more people.
Yeah.
And then met him because I was doing that.
Yeah.
So like you can think something is random, but I feel like there's so much preparation that can be really helpful. So like how do you kind of talk people through that?
Yeah. So like in the book, I talk about the dating funnel, which is 5 stages, and you can imagine a triangle inverted, and on the top is prospecting. And I always tell people have 3 different sources of lead generation. And I believe that all you can do is put in 100% of your 50%. And so if you're just like, you know what, I'm going to let fate happen, you are not taking responsibility of your 50%.
Yeah.
And if you are, you're doing the apps, you're doing in real life events, you're asking a matchmaker, you can be assured that at the end of the day, you've done everything in your power and the rest is up to the universe. You can depend on fate then.
Yeah.
But I think it's just it's a cop-out and a way of avoiding pain or the risk of pain by not trying.
And that's, I think, that gets at the heart of it, I think, because there is something so frustrating about feeling like you're throwing your everything into your 50% and you still don't have the results you want. And you're like, well, what the fuck else am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I'm doing my 100.
Yeah.
And like, it feels like you're banging your head against a wall.
For sure.
So I understand the reaction.
Yeah. And I feel like I think that there is this different type of heartache that isn't discussed. We talk about helping people who are breaking up, right? But there is another type of heartache when you're trying and you're going on dates and your friends are getting married and they're moving to the suburbs and they're having children and you're the bridesmaid again. And like that heartache of feeling like you're not moving towards the milestones you want in the timing that you want is heartbreaking and it's disappointing. And I feel like there's so many things in life where you can try hard, even being a business owner, fucking trying all the time. Sometimes I get something good, sometimes I don't. And there's a level of also being able to practice non-attachment to the specific results that you want.
Yeah.
And that is really hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. So we're prospecting, we're getting more people in our funnel, which I love in my like from my ecom background. The next 2 stages for me, I think, kind of go hand in hand in terms of the like data collection, the discovery, and then also the evaluation. Like I feel like those are sort of happening at the same time. Tell me more about how you kind of think about dating as data collection, because I love this angle.
Yeah. So I think so the next stage is called discovery, and that states 1 to 2. And the stage after that is evaluation, which is dates 3 to 20. Now, I suggest that you take a very different strategy between discovery and evaluation.
Oh, okay.
So discovery is really a vibe check. It's the only two questions you want to be asking, like, am I having fun? Is it fun enough to see this person again? And if so, you go again. You don't have to figure out like, ooh, do I want to rip their clothes off? Are we going to make out? Like, are they going to be my future baby dad? Like, you don't have to figure out anything.
Be together forever?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no.
It's just too much pressure to put on someone and on a first date that can cause us to not be present or to have anxiety on that date or just put too much pressure on that person.
Yeah.
So if you kind of go in with that mentality, there is a level of non-attachment. There's a vibe check, cool, we'll go again. And then I think after dates 1 and 2, you're like, okay, there's enough of a connection here. Then you're figuring out through experience and time, do they have the same core values? Like, do we get along as a team? Do we want the same things? And that is a process you can't skip. And I feel like for many people who have higher anxiety, we skip that evaluation stage altogether. We're like, vibe check, great, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, be my boyfriend or girlfriend, right?
Like,
like,
yeah, they like me
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
in my past. I'm like, oh, like I have found someone who keeps talking to me. Woo!
Yes. And so like you can't fast forward through the stage because people on like the first 3 months, they really don't count. You're hopped up on love drugs. You don't know if someone is going to be consistent in messaging and seeing you. And in the beginning, the most avoidant person can show up with the most like charm and being proactive, but that's because they're also hopped up on love drugs.
Right. And they just might have a different reaction to those 3 months later as an avoidant, let's say, than you would as an anxious person.
Exactly.
Do you find in this stage, like when you're working with people, that you're pointing them back to those lists that they made in that foundational work to be like, hey, remember all those things you circled?
Yeah.
Does that happen?
Yeah. So an exercise I do at my retreats and with my clients is I have them write down what their core values are, what their preferences are, and what their deal breakers are. And this is also in the book. And it's important that people do this when they're not in an like already chemical state.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's when we put on our rose-colored tinted glasses and we don't see it.
Yeah.
So having those that understanding of your deal breakers, that's a hard no. And so if you don't know what those things are ahead of time, you'll rationalize that behavior away. And sometimes I'll have people who they start dating someone and then like this most trivial thing comes up that icks them. And I'm like, this is a preference. It's not a deal breaker. And like helping them not jump off the ledge of like, oh, forget it. That's like another thing I'm finding a lot, especially with my female clients right now.
I have seen that also with my female clients, even as early as like on a dating app.
Yeah.
Where they'll see something. I have an example from myself of something that I pushed through and did not let it ick me out, but tried to. I don't know why, and I mean no shade to people who practice this, but when I saw a man practice martial arts on a dating app, I got extremely icked out.
Okay.
I can't explain it.
Yeah.
I can't explain it, and I had to push through it because I was like, Allie, this is stupid. Like there is absolutely no correlation between whether you're going to like this person and whether they like maybe do jujitsu.
Yeah.
Like it's fine. And guess what? My current partner was a black belt in karate.
Oh my gosh. So funny. So funny.
So like this, I really resonate with that because I think there are things that we have to push through. That one was extremely trivial. Some of them are bigger, but like.
But at least you had the awareness, right? But a lot of people don't. And they think that ick that they're icking over is very valid.
Yeah.
It's not.
I love the face you made. When
It's
you like,
not.
It's not valid.
Like we say we want love and connection and to build a partnership with someone.
Yeah.
And like, so say if you meet someone now and say you'll spend 50 years with that person, we so many people optimize for the things that don't matter. Height, whether they have the same hobbies, all this stuff that within 2 years you adapt to it because of hedonic adaptation. You don't even notice. It becomes your normal.
Yeah.
But the 48 years, what actually matters is, okay, we handle conflict well together. We have the same core values. We take turns being supportive. We're both invested in building and growing, even when we hit those rough spots. That's what is going to be the glue. And we are so caught up in superficial things that appeal to our ego. And so, yeah, we're not having luck dating.
Yeah. Like, I can think of something that I thought was really important that, like, in a long-term relationship doesn't show up at all. Texting.
Oh, what do you mean?
So I thought it was really important that I was able to, like, banter with someone in text message. And in early dating, granted, you are not seeing the person nearly as much, right? So, like, I didn't want somebody who never texted me or who, you know, would text me one-word answers.
Yeah.
But if I look now, 2 years into my relationship, we barely text. We live together.
Yeah.
There's no need to be texting.
Yeah.
So unless we're, like, one of us is traveling, his texting style literally never matters.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so true. That's so true. I feel like that's the same with me before. Yeah, like now my boyfriend like texts me like the most obscure things constantly. Like yesterday it was like about the types of peanuts the crows like and don't like. And I'm like, I don't care.
Our texting is just like, it's so much more logistical too. Like, it'll either be random. It'll either be like a random ass TikTok that he saw that he like thought was funny, and I'll be like, huh. Or it'll be like, oh, I'll be home at 6:30.
Yeah.
Or I'll text him like, hey, I'm going to start dinner. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
it's just different, and it's not as important as I thought it was.
Yeah, because I think in the beginning there is so much anxiety of like, do they like me? Is this going to be the right person? That we put so much weight on things that we think are going to be telling of how the future is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why when someone in the very beginning is like courting you and doing all these things, you're like, oh my gosh, this sets precedent. These big gestures of romance or declarations of love is how it's going to be. And this is what matters. Well, you know what really matters when you've been together for 7 years? It's like, how well do you get along on another Friday night when you're totally toast from work and you're watching television and then your cat pukes and like those are the things. It's boring.
Do you have cameras in my house or literally down to the cat puke? Like, we'll be sitting on the couch and we'll hear it and we'll be like, whose turn is it to get up?
I know.
Yeah. And we keep track. We're like, no, I got up last time. I cleaned up the puke last time.
Why do our cats puke so much?
Oh my God, it's the worst. If you have dogs, you don't understand. Cats, they're such pukers. Yeah. So one of the things that I love about the framework in your book is I feel like a lot of frameworks stop where we're at right now. Whereas to your point, like you have clients that like are moving past breakups and then they're dating, but now the last two stages, commitment, retention, like there's important stuff happening past when you decide you want to be in a relationship with someone.
Yeah. Yeah. And like 60% of breakups happen in the 2-year mark. So if you're not aware of like the skills it requires to keep that relationship going, the chemical shift that happens at the 2-year mark, you might just constantly be getting into these 1 to 2 year relationships, one after another, thinking it's that person's fault, when really it requires skill.
Yeah. And so how do you talk to people about that, especially if they're not somebody who, like, I think there's two different struggles. One might be the person who's finding themselves in multiple, like a series of 1 to 2 year relationships. But then there's also someone, me, who hasn't been in that many. This is the first time, well, technically we need another 17 days, but this will be the first time I'm hitting 2 years.
Yeah.
And so for me, these are new skill sets.
Yeah.
And so like, how do you talk someone through that and approaching that?
I think the first thing is people need to understand that there are pretty much 2 distinct stages in love on a chemical level. And the first stage lasts between 12 to 18 months. And that is the romantic, passionate stage. It's very dopamine driven.
Yeah.
Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical, it's the anticipation. So it's about getting what we don't have yet from from the future now. And it is when we don't know someone, we don't know, are we going to see them next weekend? Or are we not? Like there's all this novelty and mystery. And that's why in the very beginning, you're highly motivated to see the person, do nice things, make dates. Then 12 to 18 months later, the chemicals change into the companionate stage of love. And this is more called the here and now chemicals. It's like oxytocin. They suppress dopamine. It gives you that very mellow, stable, secure feeling, but you're not going to feel that like they walk in the room and you suddenly just want to rip their clothes off.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. And so the mistake people make is they're like, I don't feel butterflies. I don't feel in love. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And they break up with the person thinking that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
But this is just the natural evolution of relationships. And it's just that Mother Nature is not going to do the work for you anymore. So you need to do things to build novelty, like learn new things together, set up time to have an intentional date night and intimacy. Like it's just not going to come naturally anymore.
But people don't realize that.
No.
Yeah.
No, they have to put in the work.
Because we don't see that anywhere in media. No one's showing us this.
No, they're showing you that romantic trip in Saint Tropez.
Right.
And then you think, oh, that's what love is. And then, I mean, I've had that where I'm like looking at Instagram and with my boyfriend, he's just watching TV and suddenly I'm mad at him. I'm like, why aren't we having this sunset toast? And I'm like pissed and he has no idea what's going on in my mind.
Yeah.
But a lot of those couples too that keep showing those grand things of love, a lot of the times people are showing that maybe subconsciously to hide the fact that there isn't something more stable.
Yeah.
And a lot of them end up breaking up. And you're like, what? I thought they were the perfect couple.
No one is. Yeah. And because also no one's showing up on social media and being like, we just had a fight.
Right.
Like that's highly unusual.
Yeah.
But that's, probably happening in between those grand gestures or the 3-paragraph long Instagram captions on like a random Friday.
Yeah.
And then you're like, why don't I have this? You're like, wait, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I actually just want the good relationship.
The person who's willing to clean up the cat puke.
Yeah, literally. I just want you to get off the couch and clean up the cat puke. That's it. So as we're transitioning into this more companionate love and kind of looking to continue to keep things connected, one of the things that I think a lot of women, especially that I work with and talk to, fall into is in your book, you talk about the overgiver. And if there are not two people, I think, that want to be keeping connected in that way in the relationship, it can be easy to kind of fall into that dynamic. What's your advice there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common pairing where one is more of an overgiver than the other. One is more of the chasing of connection and the other one isn't. Even if you both started out the same, one dynamic shifts the other person's dynamic. And so I think for anyone who tends to veer more people pleasing or over giving, understanding that there's two different types of guilt is very important, because a lot of times we give because we want validation, to be liked, or we feel guilty. And I'll give you an example, like a friend wanting me to go to a bachelorette party in Spain and not being able to afford it and not having the time, and then her getting mad because like, well, if you're a friend. So that a guilt will come up.
Yeah.
But that guilt is misguided guilt, because I'm not doing anything that is crossing my own core values. I am not meeting an expectation that someone has placed on me, but that guilt is not that I've done something wrong.
Right.
So if you're not aware of that, you'll be like, oh, I feel guilt because they're mad. I'm just going to say yes now.
I need to do this thing and
Exactly.
overgive in the example.
So understanding what your core values are, like you can ask yourself when someone is asking you of something and you don't want to say yes, are you saying yes? Are you feeling guilt because you've actually done something wrong? And that's when it's helpful guilt. Like, I've done something wrong against my core values. I need to correct this. Or if it's misguided guilt, it is someone else has expectations, but I'm not crossing any of my core values. And you have to practice that muscle of like, hey, I'm just going to buy some time and process. And not saying yes right away, and not doing things so that you just get resentment afterwards. And it happens a lot in relationships.
Yeah. Like if you feel like you're always the one who's trying to drive that connection, or like maybe you want to do more scheduled date nights, like you said, and like you're the one who's scheduling those date nights and like having those conversations.
Yeah, and you almost enable the other person if you're always the glue. So if you're always taking 2 steps for every 1 step that your partner is taking, they get used to it, not because they're a bad person, but you're setting precedent and you're enabling them. So what you need to do is, when you have that urge of like, I'm just going to try harder, just take a pause and give it space. Allow the other person to have the opportunity to give back to you. And maybe you will be disappointed, but maybe they'll surprise you because there's actually space for them to show up.
And is that how you recommend kind of breaking that pattern, is taking that pause?
I really do. Like, I've had to really work on that. I also have had a really hard time receiving. So anytime, whether my partner or a friend would do something for me, I would automatically even it out or one up them. And then I was constantly feeling empty. So I had to like just stop myself when I'm about to give, be like, where's this coming from? Is it from a place of true generosity and abundance? Or am I trying to get validation or get them to like me or control them? And just being really aware of where that root energy is before I make my decision.
Yeah, like there can be a motivation of, even with friendships and things, of like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll be seen as a really good friend if I do this thing, or and well, what is that actually achieving?
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus where it's coming from. I like that thought, and I think it can really help prevent resentment in friendships too, because
Yeah.
that happens in friendships too, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like with my boyfriend, I love buying gifts and doing all these things. Our early stage of dating, he was away in Spain. So he took he was flying for like 18 hours. I was so excited to see him. So I went to his apartment first and I created a scavenger hunt with riddles. And like, once you got one clue, there would be a snack and you would go. And I was like, he came in like, not showered, so tired. I'm like, let's do the scavenger hunt. And he's like, okay, like, can I just shower first? I'm like, no, you got to do it now. He's doing the scavenger hunt. He's like, riddle me this, riddle me that. He's like, I don't know. I can't figure it out. And we got in a huge fight. And he's like, Amy, I never asked for a scavenger hunt. Like, I just want to come home from my flight and shower. And I took a few days to think about it because I was like, I'm such an amazing girlfriend. I did a scavenger hunt with snacks. I'm like, he didn't ask for that.
He didn't want that.
He didn't want it at all.
Yeah. He like actively didn't want it.
Scavenger hunts.
I mean, it sounds really cute.
I know. I think my girlfriends would love it, but like, he's like, I don't care. Riddle me this.
It does sound very cute, but I
know.
also, that's just like really relatable to me. I mean, it's like, Amy, I just don't want a scavenger hunt. I just got off a flight. I'm just trying to shower.
Oh man. Yeah. So don't do that.
But coming from such a lovely place.
I know.
But then like,
I know.
then I actually think about it though, of things that I've done like that in the past. And I'm like, actually, was it coming from a lovely place, or was it coming from like, I need to feel validated that I'm doing something really great?
Yeah.
And that he's going to be like, oh my God, you're the most amazing girlfriend.
Yeah.
And you like did this whole thing for me.
You would have appreciated the scavenger hunt.
I would have appreciated the scavenger hunt. I would love a scavenger hunt.
But like, we can also do things from a loving place, but then we can't get mad at the person when they're not reacting the way that we wanted in our mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I struggle with that one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I will accidentally script interactions in my mind before they happen.
Okay.
Sometimes because I'm like nervous about them, or because I want to make sure that what I'm going to say is going to be good, or whatever it is. Not necessarily always in relationships, but I will script an interaction on accident. I'm like not planning on doing this, but maybe it's a gift, right? Maybe it's like, oh, I'm going to give this person this gift. And in my mind, I've already like accidentally scripted how I think it's going to go. And then it doesn't go that way, but it doesn't go poorly.
Okay.
It just doesn't follow the script that was in my
Right.
mind.
Yeah.
And now I'm upset.
Yeah.
But I've upset myself. They didn't actually do anything wrong.
Right. Yeah.
That happens to me not as much anymore because I'm like now more cognizant of it. But I
Yeah.
think that kind of falls in line with what you're saying.
Yeah. I think anytime we have an expectation, and then our expectation isn't met, we feel disappointment.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
In that same vein of the overgiver, I loved how you kind of talked about the difference between codependency and interdependency and like what that looks like. I haven't heard codependency. I feel like people throw around all the time.
Yeah.
And they're like, here's how to not be codependent, etc. I don't often hear, though, the reverse of interdependence and what that is and striving towards that. Can you explain that a little bit for the listeners?
Yeah. So interdependent is, there's like this kind of, I think, a spectrum, right? Codependency is on one side where your partner's feelings becomes yours, or even your friends' feelings. You take on the moods of other people. Their problems are your responsibility to fix. You merge with someone and you don't know where you start and where they end. And I think there's high like independence where there's someone who's like the lone wolf, where like everything is on my own, and that's typically a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
They were hurt in the past, so they don't trust anyone. And somewhere in between is healthy interdependence, where you know that you will be okay to open your heart and trust people, the right people. You're discerning with who you let in. And if they were to disappoint you, you would be okay. You don't rush to fix other people's problems like they are your own. You have your own life. You have your own friends. Not your schedule isn't completely dependent on what your partner can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think that is a place where relationships thrive, when both people are in that.
Yeah. And I think that is so powerful, of that ability to balance that, because I think it can be really easy to snap from codependence to, well, I don't want to be codependent.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to not need anybody ever.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's not great either.
Yeah.
And then we're not letting people in.
Yeah. Anytime you find yourself going from one extreme to another, that's typically a defense mechanism. Sometimes we need to do that huge swing to find our way back into the middle.
Yeah.
But understand, like, when you're doing that, there's typically something going on, and that's not the end result you want. You want to like work on it a little bit more.
I have found that in my past of going from anxious attachment to avoidance.
Yeah.
Where like avoidance is not natural for me. Like that is absolutely a defense mechanism that I'll put up.
Yeah.
But in my past, where I would be like, oh, I was too anxious. Now I'm not going to care at all.
Yeah.
Now if he comes a little closer, I'm running away.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's also fake avoidance. You're not really avoiding.
Yeah, masquerading as an avoidant.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm so cool and aloof. I'm so avoidant. Like, no, just to be clear, I'm kidding. But that is one of the things that I thought when I was like, oh, this anxiety is bad. Let me move over here. And I think the same thing can happen with codependence and becoming too hyper independent.
Yeah, for sure.
It's also hard.
It's all hard.
I know. Well, Amy, sort of in wrapping up, I think when I first saw the title of your book, Unsingle, the first thing that popped into my mind was like, oh, moving towards being in a relationship. But in reading the book, I think it's much bigger than that.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that word means to you.
Yeah. So the book is like, it offers so much on the science of dating and frameworks and how to go from casual to committed. But really, it's the story of a young girl who tried her whole life to find love outside herself, and which is me. Spoiler alert.
I'm the young girl.
And really, like, towards the end, it's like the realization that love comes in so many forms, and you're never really single. Like, unsingle is a mentality. Like, I have love with my friends, with my cat, with helping the community, with my boyfriend. Like, they're all equally important parts of the love pie. Yeah. And I think that this is a departure from the traditional way of thinking, where we do center our lives and our idea of love and a fulfilled life if we're getting a romantic slice of love.
Right.
And it's just not like that now. There's so many different forms that are possible. So that's really it. Like, unsingle is a mentality, whether you're partnered or not partnered or somewhere in between. It is having a full life and having that strong foundation, and whatever your goal is, trying your 100% of your 50%.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here again. Where can our listeners find you and your book?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm at Miss Amy Chan. My book is called Unsingle. And if you actually go to my website, there's free templates and stuff. So missamychan.com/unsingle.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
This was so fun.
It was incredible. And to the listeners, we'll talk next week.
Yay.
Yay.